Hi, Joshua.
I
I hope you can. Hi, I hope you can hear me.
yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so as you said, today we're going to talk about e-vehicles and the regulations that are around European Union and Germany. Mostly will be Germany because Germany is one of the countries that is really dealing with this issue on a different level. I would like to cover like two topics. The first topic is going to be most connected to how e-vehicles are treated in Germany, and not only in Germany but in European Union as such, and as well like how we are dealing with cases when it comes to autopilots doing an accident or stuff like that. And the second topic will be connected to the privacy, which is one of the biggest and major topics that everybody's talking about currently. And it's mostly connected to the safety of your personal data as such, that the car will be able, or it's able to connect. So first of all, just to give you like a brief details about what's going on in Europe, is that the vehicles as such are already regulated. Like there is a regulation in place in European Union, which is covering e-vehicles and hybrid vehicles. So electronic and hybrids are already partly regulated. Of course, 100% regulation is never possible, and laws are changing on basis as it comes. But at this point, they are covered, and there is in the regulation is said that from having in mind that these vehicles are really soundless and they are really quiet as such, so they might cause a lot of problems when it comes to people like deaf people or people that have a different type of difficulties. So that's why the cars from now on will have to be fitted with a new system, which is going to be like a safety system, and it has to be like an audio and visuality system. So in a way, it will function that that system will produce a sound up to 20 kilometers per hour when the car starts, the engine starts off, and up to 20 kilometers, it will create a sound. It will be the same when the car is slowing down, so that people will be able to hear that kind of a sound. This is mostly connected to places like in the cities, like where you have pedestrians mostly and stuff like that. So that is why it has to be something that's implemented. This is going to be obligatory for everyone since next year, 1st of July 2021. So everybody who is producing any type of electric cars, they will have to consider that for the European market, they will have to have this type of system included. I don't know how much you are aware, but most of the German manufacturers are already working on electronic cars. So basically, they are covering the market as such, and they are talking about how to make these systems to be much more safer for everybody, and as well not only like environment, but it's also for the people that are living there. But let's go to the topic when it comes to the autonomous cars, which I believe it's a little bit more interesting from legal perspective. One of the biggest and really complicated issues that we are having currently is that everybody's like talking about is about the Tesla autopilot and what actually that autopilot means. There have been several accidents around Europe when it comes to autopiloting and when it comes to Teslas. Mostly Tesla, because Tesla is the current biggest manufacturer when it comes to electronic vehicles, and the biggest manufacturer when it comes to using autopilot and autonomous cars as such. So there has been a crash in Germany. This is really interesting case. It has been a crash in Germany in near Hamburg. And the crash involved a car, which is a model of Tesla, Model S of Tesla, and the car as such did the accident with a bus. Luckily, there were no fatalities, so there was no big deal. But the thing was that the autopilot of the car was engaged, and the driver as such was not paying attention, thinking that the autopilot is the one having the control of the car. But the real question is whether it should be considered like that. The German police went to that level to say that autopilot as such on Tesla car will not or shall not be considered as something that should drive by itself. So due to it, they were treating the autopilot as a cruising control device. So according to them, it was the fault of the driver that he didn't put his feet and his hands on the wheel, but sat on the pedals. So in a way, what Germany said in that point was that as much as you have an autopilot who is really in a way helping you out with the driving and maybe relaxing, but you cannot be the one who is going to be living that out of circumstance. The biggest problem is that we're still talking, like there are a lot of talks when it comes to this. So this is still an ongoing issue, how it should be solved, because we are aware that the autopilots being as such already in cars and everybody's gonna start using them. So it's an interesting topic that is gonna have to be covered up in a very different way in Europe, and I believe everywhere in the world, not only in Europe. So it has to be studied to be treated a little bit differently, because at the first, from a legal perspective, the first people that will get to see will be like, okay, but what if the feet and like, what if everything was in place? What if his feet were on his pedal? What if his hands were on the wheel and still the accident happened? Who would have the fault? Because it might be that the autopilot is in a faulty. So who is the one who is going to be responsible for that kind of accident? In a way, that is still something that is discussed a lot, but there is no real solution to it. There will be a lot of changes when it comes to these stuff. Currently, the German courts are treating autopilots, like they even said to Tesla that they should stop use the word autopilot in order to not do misleading to consumers that the car shall be driving by itself and that they are the ones doing their own things. So they are, in a way, they are telling them that autopilot should be out of use as a word, because the autopilot shall not be the one who is going to be controlling of the car, and that the drivers should be aware that they shall have the full control as such, and that they are the ones who is going to get responsibility when it comes to it, at least until now, until they figure it out how this whole thing will go in further. There was another accident regarding this in Netherlands, where it was a fatality. So the driver of the Tesla died because the car was caught fire. So it was all really hard for them to take out the body. Like Tesla had to come over on the scene and explain to the firefighters how to take the body so that it doesn't cause even bigger issues for the environment. So one of the biggest questions there was that when they were asked about the engagement of the autopilot, the Tesla said that there is no engagement, that the autopilot was not on. But the real question is whether it was true or not. Nobody will be able to know, because Tesla was the one who gave this as a saying. So we are not certain. This was just like a case, and that's why we are saying this is still an really ongoing issue. And it's really interesting to see how this whole thing will develop in future, having in mind that autopilots as such, when it comes to planes, is not a big problem, because the planes as such function in a very different way. So they have one destination to another destination, and it's much more different. But when it comes to cars, it's a little bit tricky. You are on the road, you have to think of the controlling of the traffic, because the traffic is not controlled like the way it's controlled with the planes. So this is a little bit much more trickier question when it comes to control of the roads. Another thing that is faced in Germany is because use of these autopilots. Germany, I don't know how many of you are aware, but Germany doesn't have speed limits on highways. So that is one of the really biggest questions that Germany has at the moment. So when you are allowed to drive 250 on a highway, and also you have a speed line which is allowed to drive 100 on a highway, like how the autopilot will be able to switch. So it's really interesting to see how this whole thing will be covered up in future, having in mind that at this point it's really still an ongoing topic, and it's really still an ongoing issue. So I guess we just have to wait and see how they will discuss in future. The other thing about the privacy issues is that, as I mentioned, the cars as such, especially the vehicles, are collecting a lot of data, and those data are not only like personal data, but they are also data when it comes to taking you from one place to another place and controlling your behavior. So the cars as such are able to pick up a location, like by saying them a location, okay, take me to the nearest restaurant or take me to my favorite place. They are the ones who are in a way choosing for you. So sometimes, or better said, not sometimes, but it's like it's really going thing that as most of the companies are able to do unpaid ads for like sponsored ads, yeah, there are a lot of misleading when it comes to what is your favorite restaurant, because at the end the car is the one choosing for you, and the car which will choose according to the sponsored ads as such. So also the car collects data of your typical day, like which is your home address, which is your work address, which is your restaurant address, like how you behave during the day, where you go, what are the places that you visit. All these data are collected from a system in the car, because the car is having the data. The real question is what happens to that data. That data has to be controlled somehow, because it can be really misused if it enters in the wrong hands. So one of the biggest problems when it comes to the privacy is how to be able to control that, and who is the one, where shall it be collected, and who is the one who is collecting the data. So that was one of the reasons, and one of the things why GDPR was brought in European Union. That's a regulation that covers the data privacy of the general data privacy regulation, and it covers a lot of privacy issues, not only when it comes to cars, but also to every other collection of data. The whole thing is that there should be a controlling of the data, because the data cannot or shall not be the one who is gonna end in a really, really bad hands. One of the biggest problems is also the cyber attacks that might happen because of it. So the controlling of the data is the one who is going to be taken out, and it says that it has to be the one, it has to be taken and kept in place in the right way, or in the right hands, let's call it like that. So the whole thing is that when you collect the data, according to the GDPR, you are not allowed to use it for every type of purposes. It's really regulated how the controlling shall go. That's the first thing. And the second thing, there are also like DPOs, those are data protection officers, who are controlling who are actually doing the job of controlling data, or if it's collected in the right way, if it's stored in the right way, whether the person who is collecting the data is actually authorized to collect the data, whether the person who is actually having the access to the data is how that person is treating the data. Because the biggest thing is, if that data gets sold, somebody can see or can have access to your data and can do or misuse your data for doing some harm to you. Like nobody knows how bad it can go. Better said, there are really worst case scenarios and nobody would like to consider it. So that is one of the reasons why this is a really, really huge topic that everybody's talking about. Of course, GDPR as such is not something that is just for cars, as I said earlier. So I believe that when the autonomous cars and are going to have much bigger impact around European Union, and not only European Union, but around the world, these laws will get changed in direction that we will have much more clear how the data have to be transferred and how the data will be collected, who is going to be the one who is going to control that data. And it's going to be, I believe it's not going to be only the owners, because the owners as such don't have that option to control their own data. So I believe that in future it will be discussed even in that way, that maybe the owner should be the one who is going to have that option to control its own data. Maybe the systems will function differently. Currently, those are cloud systems, so it's really complicated to connect all those all these informations in one place. So yeah, those are the two actual topics that I wanted to discuss. So I will be really happy to answer your questions. I don't know if you have any when it comes to this.
So I have a question from Vignesh. So he's asking, like, let us say electric vehicles are picking up. There's a lot of politics in the petrol business as well. So many countries which own petroleum companies, huge amount of petroleum resources. How will they react to electric vehicle and the new concept of driverless vehicles? Your thoughts on that?
Yes, thank you for your question. Well, the thing is that, as you said, like a lot of countries have a lot of investments when it comes to petrol, but currently Europe as such is really pushing its way to electronic vehicles to be the first type of vehicles that are going to come around. They are building up a lot of stations, so like electronic stations. I believe one of the reasons for it is not only about the petrol, but it's also about the environment. Like Germany is one of the countries that is really concerned when it comes to environment, and like having class pollution, like putting pollution on almost zero, and clean the environment as such. So for them, having the electric cars as such is one of the best solutions. They are even considering to build up to a level to have like that. That's one of the reasons why I even mentioned to you that the German manufacturers are now transferring from being from using like these diesels or petrol cars to electric cars. The reason is that they are aware that Germany as such is pushing in a way that this should be the new type of cars that will be placed on the roads, and that it's much healthier, let's call it like that. So for them, I believe it's not going to be a big problem to switch. Unfortunately, I cannot say for other countries like Qatar or these big petrol, like not only petrol, but like Nigeria and these countries that are having oils and petrols. I believe for them it's really bad. But in a way, for European countries, they are really pushing themselves to come to that to these electric cars, and to be like less pollution and much cleaner environment. At least Germans are really into it.
Another question to you, Angela. So, is all driverless cars associated only with electric, not cars, vehicles associated only with electric engines?
Most of them, yes. I don't. So far, we haven't had any cases when it comes not to electric cars. So, autonomous cars are mostly connected to electric cars. Better said, I think only Tesla for now is using it. I'm not sure if there's any other manufacturer that has this type. That's why I even mentioned that it was Tesla accidents, both of them, because at this point I believe that's something that is really connected to this manufacturer. Probably in future all of them will start using it, but it will be just in a different way and in a different development.
Once again, on behalf of our institutions, both our institutions, I would like to thank you, Angela, for spending your valuable time and giving your
Thank you very
thoughtful
much,
inputs
Joshua.
about how the laws are going to be in the future for electric vehicles and driverless vehicles. So thank you very much, Angela, for joining with us.
Thank you, Joshua.